But the way you use he's testing the walls.
Yeah, different.
I remember when they did it to COVID, it was that kind of idea. But now it's like,
No, no. Don't let it.
Yes, it's interesting, and these are the material comedians, like which they show, like. So that's kind of you can see.
Just a quick message from the captain's desk. Don't worry, don't worry. One more minute and we start. So I would like to invite everybody who is enjoying his coffee or tea outside to join us. It's going to be very interesting. Probably the most interesting panel is just ahead of us. It's a panel about the future.
It's the most important one.
Oh, after the health one, it's difficult to.
Yes.
actually put that kind of significance on this one. This previous one was for. Yeah.
Previous one.
Very good.
Great. So we're starting. We're in Switzerland, in the very heart of a country that values time. And we're starting on time. We're going to be ending up on time. But I'm going to start in a traditional a way which is going to surprise you. But our keynote speaker today, Tomas, brought something very special to me as our chair. Look at that hammer and look at that wooden piece. So we are starting the panel for the future with something that comes as a very good symbol of traditions and hopefully wisdom and decisions. What we do is something very simple. I'm very proud to be your chairman of the panel today. What we're going to do, we're going to build up on the legacy of COP29, which just recently was held in Baku. We are very proud. We set up a record on the participants. We took important decisions. We're not going to forget that politics is not just about talking, it's about bringing results. We will never abandon our mission at NGAC that we're here for solutions. We will listen to everybody. Everybody is free to speak, to exchange ideas. We can debate or we can fight, but with arguments, not populistically. But at the end, what it counts is results. And there is a panel now which is very much focused on the legacy of COP29. And that's a panel about the Digital Green Action Initiative. We were very proud, some of us, to be part of advisory board to the presidency of COP29. And that was a historic moment. I want you to register to know that for the first time in the history of the COPs, for the first time, there was the first ever in Baku COP29 Digitalization Day that happened in Baku. The main driver and the main hero of that COP Digitalization Day is right here in the middle of us. That's Tomas. And I'm very proud to give him the floor. But let me just mention the three major milestones of what we are going to debate right now. Green Digital Action Plan, Green Digital Action Agenda that came out of COP29 and it's addressing the future. It's about the progress on tech, but not just on tech, but tech for green. tech for climate change resilience, tech for humanity that is serving humanity. As we also spoke just 30 minutes ago, climate change is linked to human life. So tech for climate change, tech for green transformation, tech for saving human lives. It's also about tech solutions. It's not just about tech visions, because most of the people also in the tech sector today have great ideas, but we would like to see solutions, solutions that work. And we would like to debate, and we'll be very much focused on that as a moderator, solutions that are sustainable. I mean, they bring results for people. You can see, you can touch how tech serves people. And that is why I'm just starting with my panel. And the first one will be our champion from COP29, Tomas. Tomas Lamanauskas is the Deputy Secretary General of International Telecommunication Union. As you know very well, NGAC and ITU, we have a very deep cooperation, and we're very proud to welcome Tomas. Tomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rosen, and thank you very much everyone here today. It's really my great pleasure to be here and kickstart this panel, and thank you very much for great words. But indeed, I have to at the outset say that Green Digital Action Initiative at COP29, together with Digitalization Day, were the partnership between NGAC and ITU, and we're really grateful for that amazing partnership. We're really grateful to Rosen as the Secretary General of NGAC for really spearheading that. We're super grateful for President Tadic and as well as Maria Fernandez-Espinosa for acting as the first ever Green Digital Action ambassadors who were at the, especially, for COP29 purposes, but beyond as well. And indeed for hosting a number of events and making this whole initiative really successful. So first of all, why we need that and what it is and what's the next step? So first of all, why we need that? So I think, first of all, we probably don't need to convince ourselves that climate is still important, despite some political narratives sometimes to the opposite. So if we see from statistics, so 2024, the hottest year on record, and actually breach of 1.5 degrees limit for the first time. I mean, hopefully not in a sustained manner, so there is some expectations that 2025 will be a slightly cooler because of the changing El Nino pattern. But that's probably not a cause to celebrate, but the cause to really be concerned of the long-term trends. And technology, of course, in that side plays dual role. On the one hand is, of course, a potential provider or an actual provider important solutions, from smart grids that can better manage energy efficiency, to weather monitoring models and how to do that, to adaptations with early warning systems and others. And there are some estimates that, for example, artificial intelligence can save 5 to 10% of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide by 2030, which is around equivalent of the European Union greenhouse gas emissions, the total of that. However, at the same time, it's also, especially with the development of artificial intelligence, this presents a huge challenge. Actually, if you look what happened in the last 5 years, so all those net zero plans of big tech companies now thrown out of the window, because they're no longer sustainable, because artificial intelligence requires investment in data centers with a huge energy requirements. Actually, compute chips, artificial intelligence chips are much more energy hungry than normal chips, and or as well as water requirements. We sometimes forget that part as well. So actually, some statistics say that in the last 5 years, energy consumption of some big tech companies doubled, and the greenhouse gas emissions increased 50%. And now, looking forward in trajectory, the compute power required to power continuous evolution doubles every 100 days. So every 100 days, you need double compute power required to bring AI to the level that companies want to bring. And at the same time, on the trajectory, about 30% increase in energy consumption year on year on. And it's very questionable how sustainable it is, not even from greenhouse gas perspective, forget that, even from energy grid perspective, because already some countries are limiting data center development just simply because their electricity grids cannot sustain that anymore. But at the same time, of course, huge technological revolution with let's put it openly, some geopolitical competition to be the best on AI still pushes that very far. So this is a potential problem, of course, with a lot of potential solutions. So the way to address that problem is really for the industry to own that problem and to say, what do we do that to maximize the benefits and minimize the risks and minimize the emissions and squeeze that. So what we started to do already since COP28, we launched as ATU with the partners, actually around 50 partners, we launched initiative called Green Digital Action Initiative, which idea is you bring all the industry together to really look for the breakthrough areas where the industry needs to step up to make sure that greenhouse gas emissions and climate impacts are controlled, but also that industry's contribution to climate mitigation, to climate adaptation, climate monitoring is also maximized with a number of pillars from monitoring on GHG emissions of industry to the green standards, making sure there's a standard suite. Actually, going even further, and we agreed with our sister standard organizations, IC and OSO, that we'll look how to make sure that every standard has what we call green lens. So that means, adoption process of every standard will go through the assessment of the sustainability process as well. And we're also pushing on things like early warnings for all, which is spearheaded by Antonio Guterres, that's ensuring that by 2027, the whole world would be covered by early warning systems in the face of natural disasters. That's very important to save lives. Actually, estimate is that the countries which have early warning systems available reduce mortality by around 8 times compared to those who do not, as well as maximizing enabling effect of that and other areas. Now, so that was the start, but COP29 was really pivotal for that because for a few areas. First of all, COP29 for the first time brought green digital action in the mainstream of the COP agenda with the official action day on digitalization, first ever official action day on digitalization is great leadership of Azerbaijan with the support of NJC to make sure that is part of that. We've had the first ever ministerial plus high-level industry representatives roundtable. We managed to squeeze around 50 speakers in 2 hours, if I'm not mistaken. That's very rapid fire, but very huge contributions. And the first ever Green Digital Action Declaration of the COP29 as a COP29 presidency official initiative. So it's not a side track, it's a COP29 presidency initiative with 76 countries endorsing that and nearly 1,200 other stakeholders. And I'm told it's the second most popular of, if I recall, 14 presidency initiatives. That shows after Green Truce, second after Green Truce. So it shows that how really the importance that the world is paying to that. And that's how our green digital action becomes a mainstream, like a core of the climate discussions rather than just a kind of sideshow, and recognition that without digital solutions, we won't achieve the necessary breakthroughs, but also the digital solutions, if not managed carefully, if investments are not done right, we can actually make fight against climate crisis much more difficult. So now, we have that from COP, coming from COP. So what's next? So I think that's I think a little bit of a most main purpose of this panel. So I think I have like 3 key words that I would I was thinking of for highlighting. So first is what they call implementation. So actually, because I think the problem sometimes with these conferences, we go there, we pledge a lot, we announce commitments, and then we go to another COP and announce new commitments. And I think what we really made it very important in the already COP29 and our first opening session was all about follow up on the commitments of COP28. So, and we had leads of all these tracks really reporting that the NJC Pavilion specifically is what has been achieved. And further, we'll be furthering on implementation track now. We have green digital action pillars that are around some of these areas I mentioned. We launched the most recent pillar is around green computing. We specifically address the impacts of artificial intelligence from making sure that algorithms themselves are more and more sustainable to also ensuring that data centers and chips also are much more sustainable as well. We already had the first green computing pillar track meeting this year with a very ambitious deliverables, and we're looking further to implement. And we're following another tracks, including database of emissions for the digital industry, early warnings for all, and other things as well. Part of the implementation is also making sure that it's not only COP event. So we actually this year, for the first time, we'll have a Green Digital Action Summit actually in Berlin as part of what is GITEX Europe event. So in May, it's actually will be on May 23rd as part of a May 21 to 23rd is a big GITEX Europe event, which will be the full, the full day event discussing green digital action. And I think what's important there, we see that as a midpoint between COP29 and COP30. So we galvanize industry on the road to COP30 there. So that's also for us a part of a implementation strategy. So now another word after implementation for me is mainstreaming. So making sure, so already COP29 made sure that green digital is the core part of COPs, but now we need to make sure that we deliver to the main climate agenda. We're not a sideshow, we deliver there. So I think, so we all know that COP30 is mostly about NDCs, national determined contributions, and the challenges that the digital sector so far hasn't been recognized in national determined contributions. And we need to make sure that it's actually included there. And we're now working to see how to help countries to achieve that. We also want to make sure the digital sector is prominent in national adaptation plans, especially through early warning system mainstreaming and other aspects. And finally, we're also looking in how to link digital investments in digital infrastructure with and ensuring that they are green investments. And that's, it will sound, so we call it digital investments as green investments kind of track. It sounds, so I'll explain why it is important from our perspective and how we try to deliver it. So today, if you look at how climate funding is usually used, climate funding is usually used regretfully for rather siloed solutions. If you want money to invest in the smart meters, you probably can get money. If you want money to invest in early warning systems, you can get money. If you want to invest in a smart traffic, you can get money. If you want to invest in a digital platform horizontally, that will make much cheaper to then deliver all those solutions, you won't get money from climate funds. That means that you will be building these differential solutions separately rather than investing in horizontal platforms such as sustainable broadband networks, fiber networks, and 5G networks on which you can build all those climate solutions. So what we're now working very firmly to make sure that we do start recognizing digital infrastructure as a climate ready infrastructure or climate enabling infrastructure, of course, ensuring that this infrastructure basically meets some basic sustainability requirements. So it means you don't power the networks by diesel, but you power by solar energy and you power by renewable energy. And then that infrastructure would be recognized as a green investments with a hopefully opening up the flow of climate funds into the digital infrastructure. Why it is important also politically, because it also bridges the gap between developing country and developed country narrative on climate funding. Because as you know, a lot of times there's a division is when developed countries say you need to invest money in the climate, when developing countries say no, but we need to invest the money to make sure that our people will have what to eat and can develop economically. Well, if you invest in digital infrastructure, they have both. They can develop economic and economy and get jobs. At the same time, climate solutions become much cheaper. So that mainstreaming piece also goes through other UN processes. So we're working very closely with Spain on Financing for Development 4 conference, which is coming up in July in Seville, Spain. And we're really looking how to really make sure that that link between digital infrastructure and green infrastructure is also recognized through the FFD process. And we're probably, calling for some advocacy on that as well. So COP30 main processes, other UN processes, financing for development, and we're making sure the digital infrastructure plays its rightful role and will link climate agenda with digital agenda fully. And the last word after implementing and mainstreaming is scaling. So really making sure that that becomes, not something that 10 people here or 50 partners here, but they call world cares. So we moved from 50 partners in 2028 to, let's say, if you count it, to 76 countries and nearly 1,200 stakeholders in in COP29. So that was COP28 to COP29, rather exponential growth. So now we, of course, need to figure out how to reach tens and hundreds of thousands of companies and SMEs that deal with digital. So they are part of this agenda because only then we'll see the change. And again, we'll be building up that advocacy towards the COP30. So for me, these are the three we're implementing: mainstreaming and scaling, what we're looking forward to. And we really thanks a lot for the and JC for the strong support of COP29. I already spoke to Russia, so we're looking forward also COP30 to collaborate as well in this agenda. And, of course, today's discussions will also highlight hopefully some areas how we can make it even stronger. So thank you very much, Rosen.
Thank you, Thomas. I will use the opportunity to ask you one question. You follow tech, you lead in tech, you talk to the tech visionaries and gurus globally. And we all here very much interested on the next week, a new American administration is coming. For the first time in history, we see such a huge engagement of the tech gurus of the Silicon Valley and beyond in an American president's administration. That never happened before. If you follow very carefully back in time, for example, one of the tech visionaries, the boss of Cisco back then, was advisor to Hillary Clinton. But never in the history of the United States was such an invasion of tech visionaries and gurus into the administration of the American president. So my very simple question to you is, what's the plan? I mean, what is the reason behind and what is the plan behind integrating all those tech visionaries, giving them the whole power of the state machine for the United States to benefit in what kind of strategic direction? And the very simple question is, what's their plan? How they would like to develop the United States administration, strategic technologies like AI, for example, having even the White House in their hands to gain advantage on what? How do you see in 4 years the end of the President Trump mandate being supported by the tech gurus and giving them the hand to do what they want? What's their plan?
Thank you very much, Rosen. So indeed, it's a bit, being part of leadership, part of the leadership of a UN agency, of course, commenting on the internal politics of one of the member states it's a bit complicated, and of course it's a plan for American voters and American administration to decide. But I think maybe looking at that, I think maybe I'll look from the opportunities and risks, of course, in that regard. And of course, opportunities and risks come from this a bit of a bifurcated narrative now, because if you see on the one hand, you see, especially from one discussion today, you see quite a bit of a backlash against what we call ESG, as part of a broader backlash around some of the concepts that have been prevalent in these days. Even you see that signaling even from some big investment funds, like who are now actually not even abolishing ESG policies, kind of anti-ESG in some ways, And I think there is a risk there, of course. At the same time, you see that some of the tech entrepreneurs who are strongly involved in the administration actually build their career and businesses on a ESG and green credentials, So if you look at EVs and then electric batteries and other things. So I think this is still, the jury is there yet. What's the kind of real there? I think also if you see still money programmed around other parts of the world, and I think that's where it's still green is very important. If you look, Europe, of course, traditionally there, and if you look at the portfolios of people like a European Investment Bank, increasingly need to be programmed for the climate funding, and that will set an agenda as well. But even was very interesting to see signals from the places like China, where I think climate is really now very strong on the political agenda. And it was very interesting. My last meeting before COP29 was actually in Chongqing, China, where we discussed green digital initiatives as well. So I think, so that's why I'm saying, so in the one hand, there is a bit of a backlash not a backlash, but like a retreat from the places where very strong, and other places from places where not that strong. It's like before maybe, or the messaging was not that strong. You see much stronger narrative. So I think in the end of the day, I think from us, it's like you're concentrating on rather than concentrating on ups and downs, concentrating on the trend line. And I think the trend line for me is still towards the more sustainable solutions, towards more understanding that climate crisis is here with us, understanding that, you cannot ignore things like California wildfires, and you cannot just say that it's just a bad forest management, So it's probably much more than that, And I think people are starting feeling feeling that in daily life. But I think what also means, and for us as us, and also any advocate over the or the fighting the climate crisis, means that we cannot just make our case based on a moral or political argument anymore. I think that's very important. We cannot just say we need to fight it because it's an existential crisis. We also regretfully need to make economic case for it, you know. So, and I think that's, I think, also the language that now more and more people want to hear, that pragmatic language of numbers, you know. So yes, very good, but then will it bring more jobs or reduce the jobs? Will it make economies more growth, or will constrain on the economic growth? And I think that's why partly our narrative, if you will, about digital infrastructure is from we now really pushing for it. So because I think, you know, if you think if you think about investments in digital infrastructure in the context of climate change, you then start saying, okay, you still need to invest in this digital infrastructure, not only for climate, you need to invest that because you want to make your people more prosperous, but also because tech people care about digital infrastructure because they build their businesses on top of that, you know. But then also, what's good, I think, in the cycle also now, that actually climate solutions now became affordable and very competitive with traditional solutions. If you look at the renewable energy cost levels, you know, so now solar and wind is competitive, in some places cheaper than oil, you know. So, and I think in a way, it's a good time to have a backlash because if we had that backlash probably 10 years ago, it would have been much worse. You know, now we have a lot more arguments beyond moral argument and political argument to continue and to push. We also have, again, if you look, if you look in electronic EV market in China, you look how it's very rapidly overtaking the traditional vehicle market, and it's not just because, you know, just the kind of moral beliefs. So I think that's why maybe my end conclusion here is, yes, the blips and ups and downs will be there. But I think the trend line towards sustainable solutions is definitely there.
Thank you. Wonderful that you're showing us trends, and those trends will shape our future, definitely. Milica is my next speaker. She was a Minister of Defense of Montenegro 2012-2016. She's a member of NJC. And she's also a passionate professor, engineer. She's looking from the perspective of really technologies that bring results. I'm very interesting to hear you, Milica. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosen. And thank you, Tomas, for this excellent introduction. I am so pleased that we managed from the last year's now meeting here in Geneva to join our forces with ITU, and having in mind that on almost all events and the meetings of Nizami Ganjami International Center, we are trying to shed the lights on everything which is related with technology, from climate, from development, from all other challenges and contributions. I do believe it's really important. And what is important coming from that cooperation is what happened in Baku during the COP29. So it was really something which could be considered as a huge, huge step forward by deciding on having this digitalization day. And there, of course, I've got to congratulate all our members who are part of the advisory board for the COP29, that they managed to put that on agenda, because it was a fantastic push forward towards the whole issue. And the declaration that was further on issued at the end of that roundtable is something that we are going to deal with in the months to follow. The good result is, of course, that already something like, I think, 1,000 different entities, different stakeholders joined this declaration, and probably there is a space for our center, of course, to be a part of it. So from that point, we will continue with discussing those main things which are coming forward, which is, first of all, how and what we've got to do to have a successful implementation of all these principles which are in declaration and which are put, I would say, in a little bit more innovative way in comparison how we did have it in the past, because this declaration actually recognized this, I would say, double character of information and communication technologies when it comes to everything which is related with climate. So on one hand, we are talking about, as you said rightly, these horizontal solutions which are enabled by technologies and which will enable us the facilitation of all these specific sector-based solutions important for not only climate, but for all different sectors. First of all, important from the implementation of the UN Agenda 2030, then very, very much important from the point of achieving, hopefully, achieving SDGs regarding the timeline we are having. And then, of course, coming to the climate, early warning systems and everything which is there. But on the other side also, what is, I think, a kind of step forward is the fact that the declaration recognized that all these technologies are having this other phase, which is from their own part, contributing towards all these issues and challenges which are related with the climate, with the global warming, with the CO2 emissions and everything. So I do believe that there is a number of challenges we should be aware of when we are talking about implementation and when we are talking about going further on. Of course, that I do believe that even at the Global Baku Forum in March, we will be able to address these issues. And there, I think that we should address them from the point of the challenges we might recognize in implementation, and then offer some way to how to overcome them. So first of all, we've got to be sure how we could leverage this double phase we are having when it comes to technologies and the whole climate and environment. And in that case, I do believe that it's very encouraging what we heard this morning and we heard yesterday from Doreen, that ITU is already stepping further on by establishing this initiative, which is green computing, very, very important, because that will address this kind of perspective where we are talking about technologies itself contributing towards the number of climate issues and emission issues. So there, as we all said, we already know what is artificial intelligence bringing in when it comes to computing, what is high performance computing bringing in, what is all this which is happening with cryptocurrencies bringing in. And there, again, we could have a link with Rosen asked a little bit earlier, how this all will develop with those trends that we could already recognize when it comes to new American presidency and the support to that crypto community he is obviously going to give through some new regulation or whatever, but that is going to be a challenge from the point of energy and everything we are here talking about. So on the other side also, all this e-waste, which is more and more present, how we are going to deal with that? What are the solutions there which are sustainable and which are climate friendly? On the other side, we are always talking about that if we want to have the real impact, then we've got to ensure equitable access to all these different digital solutions. Infrastructure is just one part of it. The other parts are, of course, knowledge, capacity building, all kind of digital literacy, which is there definitely necessary so that even in the regions which are not developed enough, we would be having people which are, I would say, at the level of the elementary skills which are needed to use these solutions. All that wouldn't be possible without really very, very developed cooperation, and especially when it comes to standardization. So that is something where, of course, in telecommunication sector itself, we are having a very good experience, and we do know how these global standards could be put forward. But of course, with the new technologies coming in, which are not like telecommunications been in the past, which are so much software based, and that is making this regulation much more challenging. There are new principles that should be taken care of, but that is something we've got to have the forums where we will discuss them and see the way forward. I remember the times when we did have these discussions about internet, and then we did have a clash of two ways of thinking. People who were thinking that we could regulate internet the same way we were regulating telecommunications in the past. At the beginning, it was a kind of confusing, but as the time passes by, we did found a kind of balance there, and I do believe that the progress was made, which couldn't be perceived at the very beginning. And of course, when we are talking about all these measures, something which is, I believe, very important is to generally raise awareness of these possible challenges and the way how we could tackle them. And it's not just awareness of the general population, where we again could be using technologies, where we could again leverage on what are the social networks, what are the opportunities there to simply show to generally people and users of all these, I would say, solutions, how we could go forward. But there is another aspect which is even more important, and which is actually that corporate part of the whole technological spectrum. How we could actually raise awareness of what is their responsibility. I do believe that Boris mentioned something yesterday, that what we are lacking here is the way how we could first of all ensure transparency in reporting all these footprints which are related with emissions, with the climate impact. And then how we could be having some kind of independent audit mechanisms to verify compliance with the standards we are working on, we are trying to implement, and so on. So that is something which is so important in, of course, synergy with those platforms that could engage citizens and the general public. But I do believe that most of the work is actually laying on that part where we are having big corporations, tech corporations, which are not usually aware of what the footprint could be. I mean, running towards all these innovations and trying to do the best in that part, people and developers just tend to forget that there is this other dimension there. So from that point, I do believe that we here could be a very good platform to talk about these things, to use every opportunity, of course, in supporting ITU in what you are doing, so that at the next COP, we would be able to say, okay, it's not just a declaration, there are the things that might be done and that have been done, and we did it in a way like this and that. So from that point, I would really always be very much focused on having at least some results, if not the optimum one we are hoping for.
Thank you, Milica. Great example, so we can understand how digital is changing climate environment. Just imagine, you spoke about internet, how many billions of trees have been saved because we just use the mail anymore and the internet anymore, and not the old-fashioned way we communicated. And also, I'll just give you another example. Again, you talk about tech and climate. Well, for example, the European Commission understood that on weather prediction, you have algorithms, but you need the data, real data, in real time, in order to really predict data that is linked to everybody's their life. We would like to know. And there is no such, how should I say, agreement on a global basis. Today, you can predict probably weather with accuracy of 24, 48 hours, but it's very difficult to have a bit more long-term predictability on weather, just because countries still don't cooperate. They don't exchange data in a way they should, in order for the supercomputers and the algorithms to make the proper result of this. So that's one of the jobs we should work on that, and Global Baku Forum is very good on this. My next speaker, Jan, he was not just the Prime Minister of Czech Republic 2009-2010. He's a passionate professor. He's educating young people. And he's also very much his legacy as running and changing the economy of the Czech Republic, which is today, I have to say, one of the most dynamic from industrial point of view countries in the European Union benefiting from digital green transformation. He was part of the plan, and I will be very much interested to listen to your ideas. Jan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rosen. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The green digital action is something that COP29 involved into the agenda, put on the table, which is pretty good. But as Mr. Ganem mentioned yesterday when chairing one of the panels, having said that, very nice to have discussions, we have to have commitments, to have pledges, good ideas, good directions, but the most important thing, how the follow-up will actually look. So how all the pledges, commitments, ideas, strategies will be translated to reality. And that's an easy job. The planet, which is facing, or which is challenging a lot of, I would say, crisis, a lot of conflicts, and with a lot of very different players on the scene. But what I'm saying and what I'm stressing, COP29 was a success story. And it is very important that all the preparatory works where NGIC was participating were brought very fruitful results, and they shaped the course of the COP29 in a very good and positive way. Green digital action. I think the most important word in this title is the word action. That means that it's not concept, it's not strategy, it's not outlook, it's not the song about a bright and brilliant future. That should be the action. That means the system of the consistent measures leading to the better implementation of the ICT, of information and communication technologies, in improving and contributing to improvement of the environment. One introductory remark, if you allow me. What we need, in general, we need a new, let's say, paradigm of sustainability. The concept of sustainability was introduced when we saw in the past that is something wrong with environment. So I would say the segment of the line, that means the segment of the line between economy or economic policies and social efforts, was stretched out, and geometrically speaking, the triangle was created with three corners: economy, social efforts, and environment. And the most important thing, and this is the concept of sustainability. The problem is how to consider and how to keep on the balancing of these three corners. We see in Europe, within the European Union, when we have the very painful debate on so-called Green Deal. So the environment and ensuring and fostering for environment, it's not free of charge. And it's there are very strong impact on economics, economic policies, even to the social life in current world full of inequalities, and so on and so forth. So that's what we actually need, how to look at the concept of the sustainability in current nowadays. Then green digital action, starting with what Tomas mentioned, and that's paradoxical, in fact, that the ICT companies, our ICT sector, this is without any question, no question about that, it's very supportive and very contributive to improving the environment. But this sector is, let's say, contributing to the worsening of the environment. No question about that. If you look at the figures on greenhouse gas emissions anyway, so this sector is one of the contributors to the worsen of the environment. But I think that's, let's say, that's solvable. It could be solved, and there are very ambitious goals anyway to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45% to 2003. I mean the emissions caused by ICT sector. The important is the adoption, and Tomas mentioned it. It is very important. It's crucial. Adoption of international green standards and to implement them. Otherwise, we are not in position to talk about benchmarking. Where we are, what are the goals and how we approach them. So it's not possible without good and thoughtfully adopted international standards. Then we have the e-waste issue. E-waste issue, that's actually a problem, how to organize it, how to reduce it, because that's something which is, by the way, very closely connected with the previous panel, because the e-waste contains a lot of toxic and very say unpleasant substances that could be very dangerous for human health. And this is the ICT that could, let's say, improve an ICT sector. We can improve bringing the methods for better treatment of e-waste, because there is expected that 82 billion of kilograms will be generated of e-waste will be generated in 2030. That's horrible. That's, let's say, terrible message we are looking at, and we are listening to. And then another area is the fostering or enhancing the circular economy. So there were some steps which has been adopted. The monitoring of the e-waste, for instance, e-waste management regulations, and so on and so forth. It was mentioned, life-saving disaster warning system, which hasn't been still adopted, which hasn't been finished, and that sometimes somewhere it's very easy to put it in action, and there are some countries where it's very uneasy and very complicated job. Now I am coming to data and call for data, consistent data, accessible data, comparable data. This is something which is, by the way, very close to my lifetime job that is statistics, and now what I'm teaching, how to make the modern statistics. And statistics is the song about data from private sources, from governmental sources, from institutions. And what we need is we set a very strong development and implementation of the, could be said, findings from the side of computing science, data science, combining these approaches anyway, and to make the data on environment and the, let's say, contributing to improving the government, but also to data witnessing about the risks in government, in individual parts of this planet. Based, it has to be data-based process. Otherwise, it's hullabaloo. It's talking shop. You need a good data, accessible data. And now it's not a song about the, let's say, there is the institution, private or governmental, which produces data, collecting data, processing data, disseminating data, and that is the user who is waiting for data. It's not a story for today and for the future. We need to open the databases of the organization that are responsible for them, for collecting them, processing them, to make their databases directly accessible. That's what we call open sources for data, fully accessible. That's nice to teach it. That's nice to talk about it, but it's very difficult to implement anyway. And it's connected with the concept of the enhancing the infrastructure, data infrastructure, institutional. If you don't have the institutions which are responsible for collecting data, that's about their funding, about their financing, about their support from the side of international organizations and so on and so forth. I remember a lot of very painful debates at the UN Statistical Commission and other bodies, how to improve the infrastructure, because that's very easy to speak about data in, let's say, European Union and in the US and Japan. But if you look at the, let's say, data infrastructure in many African countries, so that's absolutely different story. And that's the call for action anyway, by the way. So it was about the data and need of data, about cloud computing. We can talk later on. But conclusions. In this field, we have very ambitious goals, which need to be, it could be achieved only when well concerted, well cooperated with the good and smooth cooperation of the international organization and the role of ITU. It's, let's say, very huge, and good cooperation between governments and businesses to get better synergy. And as was mentioned, it could be some perhaps going up, going down, but what we statisticians love is the description and analyzing the trend, tendency. And I do believe that there is setup of the things and the steps which should follow that we can expect a positive trend in this field, that means in the field of the implementation of what we call green digital action. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I was very much interested when you spoke about this triangle between economy, society, and environment. Triangle is really much more stable than many other forms. I remember the European Union back then when I was head of state. You had the triangle, the way the European Union was run, of three powers, the UK, Germany, France. It was much more stable. After Brexit, we don't have it anymore. But in the European Union, for example, when there was an issue about security or defense, UK and France would ally together in order to bring solutions. When it was about competitiveness and many other economic decisions, it was the UK and Germany aligning to take decisions, and that was good. So now we don't have it anymore, and we worry. My last speaker is a legendary diplomat, is somebody everybody knows here in Switzerland and beyond. Walter is also, and he was a Director General of Swiss Agency for Development Cooperation in 1993 to 2008. So basically he was traveling all over the world and helping nations all over the world. Walter, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allow me to speak in my capacity as honorary chairman of the World Association for Sustainable Digital Transformation. I'm not speaking about digitization, digital transformation, and sustainable in the sense of the Rio Declaration. This is a private initiative we launched in 2020, based in Zurich. Then we had the COVID, we had to slow down, but we are flying at normal altitude since then. It's a private organization committed to propelling the world towards a more eco-conscious future through sustainable digital transformation. Guided by vision, leading the change in sustainable digital transformation for a more eco-conscious world, we want to create awareness for trends, challenges, risks, opportunities of sustainable digital transformation along the 17 Sustainable Development Goals at the heart of the UN 2030 agenda. By fostering human connection amidst growing digitization, we strive to bring people together for personal dialogue, enabling collaborative efforts towards a sustainable digital transformation that empowers the global community and stand at the forefront of harmonizing digital advancement with sustainability. At the heart of our mission we put 6 key sectors integral to sustainable transformation. It's finance and technology, government and society, agriculture, education, culture, and health. And we are active in 4 regions of this globe: Europe, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Don't ask me why we are not active yet in North America. We just did not want it to get instrumentalized. We are not involved in politics, but we, of course, monitor policies and we take them into account while having those talks. We also have a close cooperation with the Federal Technical Institute of my country in Zurich. They have on their campus a particular building which is called the Artificial Intelligence Tower, where we have about 150 researchers solely concentrating on the issue of artificial intelligence and data collection. Our regional network also is enriched by national chapters. We have a particular one on health and health system, digital transformation in China, and one coming up very soon on another subject in Africa. We engage our community through various activities designed to inspire, educate, and catalyze change. Our main events include an annual forum hosted either in Davos, Switzerland, or in one of our partner countries, providing a platform for thought leaders and innovators to exchange ideas and best
practices. Additionally, we organize annual learning expeditions to Europe, Asia, and Africa, offering immersive experiences that highlight the success and challenges in sustainable digital transformation. And third, to maintain momentum and encourage ongoing dialogue, we also host regular one-day specialist events and symposia in Switzerland and other European countries under the theme Digital Transformation Update. We just had last summer, autumn, the updates at the Google headquarters in Zurich on agriculture, covering food security issues from big seed companies to implementation and agro research projects. We had one on health in Davos, particularly about hospitals and health systems, but also about medical technologies, how they are benefiting from digital transformation and even from communication, building in small sensors into those devices, implemented into replacing artificial joints and things like that. We also have one on finance coming up next month, and then again in May, one on culture in Africa. So having said this, I am refraining not to talk about what I learned about the ITU initiative and the green commitments, but forgive me not to apologize that we started in 2020 and we mobilized. We do not interfere in private sector business entities, but we sometimes are requested to coach, and we have a network of a variety of researchers, specialists, entrepreneurs, former CEOs working on this issue and supporting youngsters and young entrepreneurs in getting into digital transformation issues. So I conclude by this practical example, as you have requested to talk about implementation. Thank you.
Now I'm turning to the audience, questions, opinions, be short, value time. We have 10 more minutes to go and we want to end up on time. And I have a wooden hammer exactly in 10 minutes. Please, the floor is yours. Csaba, please, yes.
Thank you much, Rosen, and many, many thanks to all of you at the panel. I still believe it is one of the most exciting topics and panels, what we had in the last couple of days. In the last 2 days, we tried to think over how to follow up what has happened at COP29 and how to make it happen, how to make it part of the transformation. And certainly it's not my task to make any resume, but I can clearly state, listening to you, that future will be sustainable and digital, or there will be no future. Sustainable, I include climate protection as well. But very much reflecting and going to what you have said, I still see a critical part of the implementation of the initiatives in Baku, in the logic of how to collect data, how to turn them into information, and how to turn information into purpose-oriented knowledge, and how to make that knowledge turning into a policy making, policy shaping package. We still don't have this process managed well. If we do it, it will be a revolution. but we have to do it. My other reflection on what you have said, and many thanks for all your contributions. It was mentioned that we need an implementation track on a couple of issues. I would say all initiatives which has been adopted in Baku. You may know, particularly those who were part of the advisory board, it was traced what was the implementation record of the previous initiatives, of the previous COPs, and it was lower than 5%. So if we want to make an impact, going just beyond making an announcement and then going to the next COP, then we need to have a credible track record implementation, data-based and verified data-based implementation. It's a digital task, actually. If the current presidency would not do it, then the next will not do it, then we will not get out of this vicious circle. And I understand the other presidency is very well positioned to keep a very transparent track record of the promises implementation, database implementation. I especially thank Milica for bringing up standardization of data. But we have to keep in mind that we are in the time of the increasing segregation of the markets. So it's a major challenge because we would like to have global standards, and at the same time we started building walls between markets. So the task is for us, for ITU and many others, that even in time of segregated markets, to make sure that the key parameters of data standards should be preserved or further developed. Still on data, what we witness now, increasing part of data related to the global common goods or environment and including climate, is coming from remote sensing, and that's good. What we need to do it still to unite remote sensing with real-time models and long-term scenario building for all the initiatives what we have adopted in Baku. And one thing is still missing. I was very grateful to Jan mentioning the data processing and data preparation for decision making. We still don't have a methodology of putting together data of very different nature. What we have committed ourselves years and years ago of being able to master the transformation. And we can master transformation only if we can control and we can bring together parts of transformation from different walks of life. So we have to learn the methodologies under development now, how to integrate data from climate, water, food, society, energy, health, and other spheres, because that will give the answer for a very simple question: are we really making progress on the sustainability transformation or not? Because the honest answer today would be we really don't know. We have some educated and vague ideas, but not know. The difficult part of it will be some of the data is very adequate, measurable, expressed in meters, centimeters, and kilograms, and so on. The other one is very subjective. For example, public trust. But we have to, and we are working on it now, how to put them together. So if we have the real-time remote sensing data, if we have the real-time models, if we have the long-term scenario building, and if we have the methodology of how to putting together how to integrate data of different nature, I think we have won half of the battles. And it will be a digital future. And many, many thanks to this panel.
Opinions. 4 more minutes to go. If not, you're making my life even easier. I count to 3. 1, 2, 3. I was very fast on 3. But Thomas, probably as you're our hero, just 1 minute, finalizing. Where do we go from here with our digital action plan? And by the way, Boris, I want to thank you. I want to thank Maria, because you are the first from NJAC team to become digital action ambassadors. Thank you for your leadership on this. And I would encourage more building the legacy of COP29 to become such ambassadors. Thomas, the floor is yours. A minute.
So thank you very much. And it's great to hear a lot of comments and both, what are the key constraints, but also key opportunities. And it's great to see such a deep understanding in this group on the topic, So I think that's what we need from the advocates indeed. I think one aspect here, to highlight that a lot of risks are also opportunities. For example, so first element what I want to mention is energy and digital development, which is increasingly interlinked on both sides. On one hand, further digital development needs a lot of energy. So, and that's why you start seeing these projects like reviving on 3 Mile Island nuclear power stations to power data centers, and you'll have a lot of push to find those energy sources that are also sustainable to power digital revolution. But then digital revolution or AI also is empowering energy. For example, the renewables as being very intermittent power source, they need AI to better balance the grid. At the same time, there's a huge opportunities, and talking to some energy companies, to actually use AI data centers as an absorption, as a recipient of so-called dynamic peak energy. So, when renewables peak, when there's a lot of wind, a lot of solar, you actually have too much energy, then the grid cannot absorb. And then what's good about AI data centers, the actually compute power load can be ramped up and ramped down. And that's why there's a lot of opportunities to bring it in there. So that's also part of this. Why I'm talking about that is also opportunity to answer a bit of the question about the trend line, because trend line is also in the economy, in economic incentives. And economic incentives is in finding that merging between renewable power sources and as well as digital revolution as well. Second is e-waste was mentioned here, and very rightly so. I think e-waste is also opportunity. On the one hand, yes, we'd only recycle around 20% of e-waste today, this very low number. At the same time, around $90 billion metals that we throw out with the e-waste every year. So that means, and at the same time, when we talk about critical minerals, we talk about shortages for metals, we talk about mining issues, So e-waste, we like to call it as actually undiscovered mined, which we actually need to mine. So we can't just see that as something we need to recover because of toxic materials, but we also need to do that because economically we cannot sustain it throwing it out, because these metals we need. Of course, thank you very much for highlighting standards. I think that's exactly the, without standards, we cannot compare, we cannot say that which data center is good, which data center is not, and how to kind of measure. We need actually, standards need to go with the auditing mechanisms as well. Data, I think, is very important, and actually standardized data. And there is some attempts also to use data, especially monitoring. We work with Google, we work with Microsoft as well to kind of look at the flood, for example, prediction, look at the weather predictions. But we also still have a lack of data input. If you look at the weather stations, basic like that, I think there was this number at least some years ago, is that the whole Africa has fewer weather stations than Germany. So what do you do about the lack actually sources of data? Some of that can be held by satellites and all that, but it's an issue. So we are now working on solutions with WMO, for example, how to use mobile towers, mobile signal attenuation data, so physically to at least to kind of have some weather information. And there's a lot of opportunities also there as well. Finally, I think is important on the follow-up and implementation, and rightly so. And I think, you know, as rightly so was mentioned that in green digital action, the word action is operative one, you know, and I think from the very beginning, we said we're not talking about pledges, we're talking about the very concrete commitments with very concrete implementation mechanisms. And that's why GGA from the beginning is set up as a follow-up platform. We have pillars, we have leads, we have working groups that are kind of delivering. And this is not ITU, this is actually partners. What ITU does, we bring it all together and make sure everyone is accountable. We make sure there's a reporting mechanism. We're sure there are people are asked what you did. And actually, I remember in COP28, people said, okay, we'll see in COP29 what we did. And we did make sure that COP29 had that reporting, but also requires continuous advocacy to make sure that it happens. You know, we need to remind people, that's what you promised, are you delivering? And of course, we need to ensure, and I think that's what I liked, PGA mentioned about the 5% only initiatives were implemented. Actually, I think one way to tackle this is also continuity. I think overall in the COPs, we have this nice process now, the Troika system, where we can ensure that there's a continuity between the COP presidencies. I think with the Green Digital Action, we're doing the same thing. That's why we're now looking towards Brazil with a strong agenda there. I'm actually in 2 weeks going to Brazil or preparing that agenda already. And with really the thing that we'll have to build on this in Brazil and make sure this is accountable and implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, ITU. Thank you, my panelists. And facing a legendary Patek Philippe watch on the wall in the middle of a legendary building in the middle of Geneva, Switzerland. I'm very proud to use my hammer on time. Thank you.